Hey everyone, welcome. Hope you're having a good day, or at least a decent one. This is the type of video I'd usually see myself making, but after a bit of consideration and downing a few cups of coffee, I guess you could say I have a small vent video and a voice reveal video bunched together. I'd like to consider this video the birth child of an issue that's been lurking in the back of my head for quite a long time now. And with that said issue being brought back to my attention fairly recently. Before I jump into the subject matter itself, I'd like to address a few disclaimers. First disclaimer being that this is 100% my opinion, but at the same time, I have a lot of experience. Not a lot, but considerable amount of experience within this medium. I'm currently a director going through creative block. I've directed about 5, 6 unsuccessful GACHA voice-acted projects in the past 1 to 2 years. Second disclaimer being that this video is like entirely unscripted. I'm just going off what's in my mind. So expect a lot of a lot of pauses, maybe occasional stutters, and a lot of cut-ins for different voiceovers. And the final disclaimer being that a while ago I made a community post, for those of you that read my community posts, of a video that of an issue that's been on my chest for quite a while. I've been wanting to get off. Just a disclaimer that this is not the video. The circumstances involving that situation that I want to make a video on have been resolved. With those things in mind, let's get into the topic, shall we? So you're probably wondering why I tell directors not to start their own GACHA voice-acted series. There's a lot of reasons to that, but I think the primary reason, the one that stands out from the rest of them, which I think has reasons of its own as well, which I'm going to get into, it's just a lot of these series, they don't really go anywhere, really. With the exception of a few of these series, they either get canceled, they get quietly abandoned, or they just take and I mean way too long to pump out and complete, or at least partially complete. And this is where I'm gonna apply some of my experience within the Gacha VA community. I've been around and I've witnessed the prime of this community around, I'd say, 2020 to 2021 was the prime, and this was when, I mean, all you saw was just series after series after series after series after series. It was like this one big hype train that everyone was trying to jump on, and like I said, with the exception of a couple, although some of these exceptions were established before the community went on its prime, a lot of these projects they flopped. They just completely flopped, or they're probably still ongoing as I speak. And that's kind of a bit ridiculous. But at the same time, I do understand that there are certain circumstances that could make this entire ordeal possible, which I'll get into that later on. But yeah, I think that's just the main primary reason as to why I tell directors not to do a series, but opt for something else instead. So now I'd like to talk about the reasons that coincide with the primary reason that I just brought up. I think the first reason being is that a lot of these voice-acted series, the planning and execution for them is just really poor, not that great. Not trying to generalize or mean any offense to anybody, but I think it has to do with the directors. Again, not trying to account for everybody, but I think it just has to do with the directors and their motivations for why they'd want to do a voice-acted series in the first place. And it stems from just getting this idea, and a lot of these directors, they just get this sudden dopamine rush with this idea. They get really overambitious, really excited, really overconfident with the series. They got all these new ideas, all these plans that I put that in quotation marks. They just get all these ideas running around in their head, and I don't really think it gives them much time or thought to at least get a clear vision or a clear idea of where they'd actually want this project to go. Although whatever they're thinking of at that moment might say otherwise. Because the thing is, a lot of these projects or series, the sometimes these directors, they just don't really consider the feasibility just the feasibility of actually getting this project to work, whether in the long run or otherwise. They just don't really take that into consideration a whole lot, and I think that's a main reason. I think that's one of the reasons as to why these projects flop. Is it's just the planning and execution of them is not that great. Back when the community was in its prime, it was pretty common to see a director, mostly a newbie director, to put out a series, auditions for a series or a project in general, and it was pretty common for them to announce or at least put up a disclaimer that there wasn't even a script. There wasn't even a script that was ready for the project itself, and um, at the time it wasn't really a turn off for much people. I mean, I guess you could kind of think to yourself why that was the reason. But yeah, they're just that was pretty common. It was pretty prevalent, and there could be a lot of reasons as to why it was that way, but I don't think having auditions for a scriptwriter would serve that any justice, because it's just showing that the director has not really thought out of this thing thoroughly, and they're just feeding off the dopamine rush that they're going through at that moment. I mentioned this earlier, but now I'll be going over the other reason as to why a lot of these voice acted series keep flopping or just not really going anywhere. And it has to do with um, a multitude of circumstances aside from, poor planning and execution. I'll put up some examples of these circumstances up on the screen right now. And especially with a lot of directors, even if you have decent planning and decent execution, even the smallest of these circumstances could really send your project rolling down the hill. Um, and I think this applies more, especially to this can apply to pretty much any voice acted project, but I think this applies more so to series rather than other voice acted projects like movies or just these small skits, because like I mentioned countless times before, um, voice acted series in general are more so this long term thing, unless you're doing like a 1 hour 2 hour film, which I've yet to see any of that. But anyways, they're just more of a long term thing, and whenever one of these circumstances pop in, like let's say a team member or a voice actor drops out of the project at random with no reason given, it could have some pretty serious implications for the project itself. If um and if the director or the people in charge haven't really planned ahead on how they'd be able to handle the situation, like for example, casting backups prior to starting, like completely starting production, um, it'll cause some pretty serious issues. As a director, I've this has happened on virtually every single one of my projects, and I think a lot of I think about half of them um, was due half of them got flopped due to these circumstances. Well, I originally planned to make this video a little bit longer, going over some more details that I wish to share, but I think that'd be more appropriate for another video, because the runtime for this one is way more than I expected. Not what I really intended, but hopefully, I was able to address some concerns I have for Gacha Voice-Acted Series and possibly the Gacha VA community in general, since it has been stagnating. Um, Hopefully I was able to get some things off of my chest. I'm open to criticism. I'm open to feedback. Feel free to leave a comment in the comment section. Hopefully we can have a civil discussion without a flame war starting. I sound like a boomer for saying that. But yeah, hopefully this doesn't come off as vague or closed-minded or illiterate or whatever you want to call it. And thank you guys for watching. And yeah, that's about it.